My name is Amber, I'm 27 years old, and 1 year ago today, my life changed forever. I still remember the weight of that suitcase in my hand, the door slamming behind me, and the tears blurring my vision as I walked away from the only home I'd ever known. Little did I know, the crumpled lottery ticket in my jacket pocket, bought on impulse during my lowest moment, would transform my life overnight. Before I tell you how my life completely transformed overnight, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you've ever had your life change in an instant, hit subscribe because this story might just give you hope when you need it most. Growing up with Diane and Harold Montgomery as parents meant living under a constant microscope. Every decision, every grade, every friendship was scrutinized against their exacting standards. They had my life planned out since before I could speak. Prestigious university, law school, then joining my father's firm. The Montgomery name meant something in our community, and I was expected to uphold its legacy. Art was my secret rebellion. At first, it was just sketches hidden between my constitutional law textbooks. Then it became painting sessions at 2 a.m. when everyone was asleep. By my second year of what my parents thought was law school, I had rented a small studio space with my waitressing money. While they believed I was attending lectures and studying case law, I was actually building a modest business selling my artwork online and at local markets under a pseudonym. You have a gift. Amber, Tyler had told me the first time he saw my work at a local art fair. Tyler Williams was everything my parents would hate, tattoos crawling up his arms, perpetually paint-stained hands, and a philosophy that success should be measured in passion, not paychecks. We became fast friends, and eventually, he became the only person who knew the full extent of my double life. "When are you going to tell them?" he asked me one evening as we sat on the floor of my studio, takeout containers creating a barrier between us and my latest canvas. "Tell who what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. "Your parents. That you've been lying about law school for almost 2 years. He wiped a smudge of blue paint from my cheek. "That you're actually an incredibly talented artist who's already making money from your work." I sighed, mixing another shade of ochre on my palette. Probably never. They'd disown me. I had no idea how prophetic those words would become. The house of cards came tumbling down on a rainy Tuesday. I had forgotten a portfolio of commissioned pieces at home, a rookie mistake. My mother, ever the meticulous cleaner, found it while dusting my room. By the time I returned home that evening, they had discovered everything: my forged law school acceptance letter, the receipts for my studio rental, and the banking records showing my art sales. The living room felt like a courtroom as I stood before them, their faces masks of cold fury and disappointment. "How long?" My father's voice was dangerously quiet. 2 years, I admitted, my voice barely audible. 2 years of lies. My mother's voice cracked. 2 years of throwing away everything we've worked to give you. "I never wanted to be a lawyer," I said, finding my courage. "Art isn't just a hobby for me. It's who I am." "Art doesn't pay bills," my father countered. "Art doesn't build a respectable career. Art is for people without ambition or responsibility." "I've sold over 30 pieces this year alone," I argued. "I'm making more than an entry-level position at your firm would pay me." That was the wrong thing to say. My father's face turned purple with rage. "You've made your choice," he said, rising from his chair. "And now you can live with it. I want you out of this house by morning." "Dad, please." "You're not the daughter we raised," my mother interjected, her voice breaking. "We don't know who you are anymore." The words cut deeper than any knife could. In that moment, I realized they had never really known me at all. I packed with mechanical movements, shock numbing the pain. One suitcase, that's all I could manage. Clothes, toiletries, my sketchbooks, and a few precious photographs. Everything else would have to be left behind. On my way out of town, I stopped at a small convenience store, eyes swollen from crying. The neon lights of the lottery display flickered like a taunt. On impulse, or perhaps fate, I handed the clerk a $5 bill. "Quick pick, please," I mumbled, not even watching as he printed the ticket. I shoved it in my pocket alongside the crumpled tissues and my dwindling hope, then continued to Tyler's apartment. He answered the door in pajama pants, his expression shifting from confusion to concern when he saw my suitcase. "They found out," I said simply, and he pulled me into a hug. "You can stay here as long as you need," he promised, helping me inside. "The couch isn't great, but it's yours." I collapsed onto the lumpy cushions, the weight of my new reality crushing me. In the span of a few hours, I had lost my family, my home, and the careful balance I'd maintained between my two lives. As I drifted into an exhausted sleep, I had no idea that the universe was about to deal me a very different hand. The sun streaming through Tyler's blinds woke me the next morning. For a blissful moment, I forgot everything, then reality crashed back. I was homeless, disowned, sleeping on a couch that smelled faintly of pizza and paint thinner. The suitcase containing my entire life sat mockingly by the door. Tyler emerged from his bedroom, hair sticking up in all directions, and wordlessly handed me a cup of coffee. "Morning, sunshine," he said, his attempt at normalcy both touching and painful. "Sleep okay?" "As well as anyone can after being kicked out by their own parents," I replied, my voice still rough from crying. He clicked on the television, perhaps hoping to distract me. The morning news filled the screen, the anchors too cheerful for my current state of mind. "And now for the lottery results," the female anchor announced with a plastic smile. "Last night's jackpot reached a staggering $52 million, and we can confirm there is one winning ticket sold in our area. The winning numbers are 7, 13, 24, 31, 42, and Powerball 10. Check those tickets, folks." Tyler whistled. "Can you imagine? Someone's life just changed forever." I snorted. "Yeah, well, not mine." I took another sip of coffee, grimacing at its bitterness. "Hey, didn't you buy a ticket yesterday? You mentioned stopping at a store." I vaguely remembered the impulse purchase, my hand instinctively patting the pocket of my jacket draped over the arm of the couch. "Yeah, but—" "Check it," Tyler insisted, suddenly animated. "Come on, what's the harm?" Rolling my eyes, I retrieved the crumpled ticket. "This is ridiculous. The odds are literally millions to one." "Humor me," he said, grabbing his phone to pull up the numbers again. With an exaggerated sigh, I smoothed out the ticket and began comparing numbers. 7, I have that. My heart skipped. 13, that too. Tyler leaned closer. 24, 31, 42. My voice started shaking. Powerball 10. Silence fell over the apartment. I stared at the ticket, then at Tyler, then back at the ticket. "Amber." Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. "You need to check again." I did. 3 times. The numbers didn't change. "This can't be real," I breathed, my hands beginning to tremble violently. "This is some cosmic joke, right?" Tyler grabbed his laptop and pulled up the lottery website, entering the numbers from my ticket. The confirmation page appeared, flashing congratulations. "It's real," he said, his face pale with shock. "Amber, you just won $52 million. My coffee mug slipped from my grasp, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. I felt lightheaded, disconnected from reality. The kind that come when your brain simply can't process what's happening. Tyler guided me to sit down as I alternated between laughing and sobbing. "What do I do?" I finally managed to ask. "What's the protocol here?" Tyler, looking nearly as shell-shocked as I felt, found the lottery commission's number. With trembling fingers, I dialed, half expecting to wake up from this dream at any moment. "New York State Lottery Commission, how can I help you?" The woman's voice was professionally neutral. I think I have a winning ticket," I stammered. "For last night's drawing." There was a pause. "Can you read me the ticket number, please?" I did, my voice unsteady. "Ms. Montgomery, I need you to listen carefully," she said, her tone shifting to something more serious. "You appear to have the winning ticket for last night's jackpot. I'm going to transfer you to our claims department, who will explain the verification process. In the meantime, I strongly advise you to sign the back of your ticket immediately and keep it in a secure location." The next hour passed in a blur of instructions, security protocols, and arrangements for an in-person verification. I was told not to tell anyone except trusted family members, to consider legal representation, and to prepare for a significant life change. The word hung in the air between us. Rich. Yesterday, I was homeless. Today, I was a millionaire. The contrast was so absurd I started laughing again, a slightly manic edge to it. I can't tell anyone, I said when I'd calmed down enough to speak. Not until everything's verified and processed. Not even your parents? Tyler asked, raising an eyebrow. I said, clutching the signed ticket like it might disappear. And a lawyer. And probably a financial advisor. Tyler nodded, still looking dazed. Amber Montgomery, millionaire artist. Has a nice ring to it. I shook my head, thinking of the months and years ahead. Let's just get through today first. The Lottery Commission's offices were nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured confetti, giant checks, and flashing cameras. Instead, I found myself in a sterile conference room with 5 serious-faced individuals in business attire. My ticket was examined under specialized lights, serial numbers verified, and purchase location confirmed. I provided multiple forms of identification and answered questions about when and where I'd bought the ticket. Everything appears to be in order, Ms. Montgomery, said Patricia Harding, the Lottery Commission's executive director. Congratulations, you're indeed our jackpot winner. She slid a folder across the table containing information about my options. You have an important decision to make. You can take the full amount as an annuity paid over 29 years, or you can take a lump sum payment now, which is approximately 60% of the total jackpot. The numbers swam before my eyes. Even the lump sum after taxes would leave me with over $20 million. I recommend consulting with financial and tax professionals before making your decision, Patricia continued. We can give you 2 weeks to decide. I nodded, still struggling to process everything. And my name, does it have to be made public? Unfortunately, in New York State, lottery winners cannot remain anonymous. Your name, hometown. The announcement will be made after you've claimed your prize officially. So, after you make your lump sum versus annuity decision. 2 weeks of anonymity. 2 weeks to prepare for the storm. The first thing I did was hire professionals, a tax attorney, a financial advisor, and a personal attorney, all recommended by a prestigious firm that specialized in sudden wealth management. With Tyler's borrowed laptop, I researched each of them thoroughly before making the calls. Melissa Chin, my financial advisor, met me at a private room in a bank the next day. She was brisk, efficient, and refreshingly straightforward. Most lottery winners go broke within 5 years, she told me without preamble. My job is to make sure that doesn't happen to you. She helped me open new, highly secure bank accounts, explained the tax implications of my different options, and outlined a preliminary investment strategy. I recommend the lump sum. I trusted her judgment and made the decision. $22 million after taxes would be mine within the month. My temporary address became the Four Seasons Hotel, anonymous enough among business travelers, yet comfortable while I figured out my next steps. The first thing I bought was a new wardrobe. Since my single suitcase hardly contained enough for my new life. Shopping without looking at price tags felt surreal, though I still found myself gravitating towards sale racks out of habit. 5 days after my verification meeting, the first news story broke. Someone at the convenience store had leaked that they'd sold the winning ticket. My mother's bridge club members. My father's golf buddies. Everyone suddenly remembered my existence and wanted to reconnect. Most disturbing was the message from my Aunt Judith, my mother's sister who I'd always been close with. Amber, darling, your mother is absolutely devastated by all this attention. She's been crying for days about how things were misconstrued. Your parents want to talk. Please call them. I deleted it without responding. Then came the message I'd been both expecting and dreading. It arrived exactly 1 week after the news broke, when the media circus was at its peak. Amber, it's Dad. We need to talk. This situation has gotten out of hand, and we're worried about you. There are things you don't understand about why we reacted the way we did. Please call us. We love you. I played the voicemail 3 times, searching for genuine remorse in his tone. All I heard was the same controlling voice that had dictated my life for 27 years. "Are you going to call them back?" Tyler asked. He'd been staying with me at the hotel, ostensibly to provide emotional support during this chaotic time. "Not yet," I replied, setting my phone aside. "Maybe not ever." Tyler frowned slightly. "They're still your parents, Amber." "They disowned me," I reminded him. "Threw me out with one suitcase. Now that I'm wealthy, suddenly they want to talk." People make mistakes. Maybe they genuinely regret it. I studied Tyler's face, noticing something I hadn't before, a subtle eagerness behind his concern. It reminded me of the expression he wore when discussing gallery showings with wealthy patrons. "Tyler, be honest with me," I said carefully. "Has my sudden wealth changed how you see me?" He looked offended, but not quite convincingly enough. "Of course not. You're still the same Amber." But I wasn't the same Amber. And as the days passed, I began to realize that perhaps I never would be again. 1 month after the lottery changed my life, I moved into a modest but elegant apartment in Brooklyn. I could have afforded a penthouse in Manhattan, but something held me back from such ostentatious displays of wealth. Instead, and enough security features to make my financial advisor stop fretting about my safety. With Melissa's guidance, I had established a diversified investment portfolio, set up a trust, created a will, and still had more money than I knew what to do with. The freedom was intoxicating. For the first time in my life, I could pursue my passion without justification or secrecy. I enrolled in the Master of Fine Arts program at a prestigious art school, a dream that had once seemed impossibly out of reach. When the admissions officer recognized my name from the news, I saw the flicker of calculation in her eyes, but my portfolio spoke for itself. Money might have opened the door, but my talent would keep me there. Tyler had been a near-constant presence since the win, helping me navigate my new reality. At first, his companionship had been a comfort, the one constant in my rapidly changing world. Lately, though, something had shifted. "You should see the studio space in Chelsea," he said one evening as we shared takeout in my new living room. "The lighting is incredible. And the owner is looking for investors in a collective gallery concept." "Sounds interesting," I replied neutrally. It was the third investment opportunity he'd mentioned that week. "I could introduce you. My friend Jason is already on board, and with your backing, we could transform the space into something revolutionary." I set down my fork. "Tyler, do you need money for something? You can just ask directly." His expression flickered between offense and calculation before settling on hurt innocence. "I'm just trying to help you find good opportunities. Your money should work for you, right? Isn't that what your financial advisor says? For investments she's vetted, yes." "You don't trust my judgment?" A note of accusation crept into his voice. "That's not what I said." The conversation ended there, but a new tension lingered between us. I began to notice other changes in Tyler's behavior, the casual mentions of art supplies he couldn't afford, the enthusiastic descriptions of networking events with high admission fees, the sketches he conveniently left visible that represented projects he could complete with proper funding. I was still processing these observations when my parents made their next move. The doorman called up one Sunday afternoon. "Ms. Montgomery, your parents are here requesting to see you." My heart stuttered. "I didn't authorize any visitors today. They're quite insistent." "Ma'am, your father says it's a family emergency." A family emergency. The same excuse he'd used throughout my childhood to control my behavior and ensure compliance. Some things never changed. Against my better judgment, I allowed them up. When the elevator doors opened, I hardly recognized them. My always immaculate mother looked tired, her designer outfit slightly rumpled. My father. "I'm still not sure I am." "Sweetheart, we've been worried sick," my mother said, perching on the edge of my sofa. "The things they're saying in the news, about us kicking you out. It's not the whole story, isn't it?" I crossed my arms. "You told me I wasn't the daughter you raised. You gave me until morning to leave." "We were upset," my father interjected. "You had been lying to us for years, Amber. We reacted poorly, but you have to understand." "I don't have to understand anything," I interrupted, surprised by my own firmness. "You made your feelings perfectly clear that night." We want to make amends, my mother said, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. We've had a lot of time to reflect on our priorities, on what really matters. Since I won the lottery, I noted. My father had the grace to look uncomfortable. The money has nothing to do with this. You're our daughter. We love you. The money has everything to do with this, I countered. You didn't try to find me during the 2 weeks before the news broke. You didn't call to check if I was safe, if I had somewhere to sleep. An uncomfortable silence followed. We've made mistakes, my father finally said. Terrible ones. But we're here now asking for a second chance. I studied them, searching for sincerity. There was remorse there. But something else too, a calculation that made my skin crawl. I need time, I said eventually. This isn't something we can fix in one conversation. They exchanged glances. Of course. My mother agreed too quickly. We understand. But while we're here, there is one other matter. And there it was. Your cousin Brady is struggling with medical school debt, she continued. And your Aunt Patricia's roof was damaged in that storm last month. The family was hoping, now that you're in a position to help. The audacity left me speechless. Not even a proper reconciliation before the financial requests began. I'll think about it, I said, a diplomatic lie to end the conversation. After they left, I felt hollow. The encounter confirmed my worst fears, that to my family, I was now primarily a resource to be tapped. The Montgomery name that had been so important to uphold was now being used as leverage for financial gain. The pressure didn't end with my parents. Tyler's hints had evolved into direct proposals. Uncle Jackson, whom I'd met exactly twice in my life, filed a spurious lawsuit claiming he had given me the money to buy the ticket. Distant relatives sent tearful emails about medical emergencies and educational needs. Meanwhile, the media had spun my reluctance to financially support my family into a narrative about ingratitude and selfishness. Lottery winner turns back on struggling family, screamed one particularly vicious tabloid headline. The anxiety attacks I thought I'd left behind in my controlled childhood began to return. Despite having more money than I'd ever dreamed possible, I felt trapped and manipulated. The wealth that should have represented freedom had become another form of prison. The breaking point came during a dinner I reluctantly agreed to attend with my parents, Tyler, and a few other family members at an upscale restaurant. I should have known it was a setup from the moment my mother suggested it. Before we order, my father announced once everyone was seated, "We have some wonderful family news to share." I tensed, sensing what was coming. Amber has generously agreed to establish a family foundation, he continued smoothly, to help with Brady's medical school, Patricia's home repairs, and other family needs as they arise. Stunned faces turned to me with expectant smiles. I had agreed to no such thing. Actually, I began, but Tyler cut me off. While we're making announcements, he said, raising his glass, I'm thrilled to share that Amber and I will be co-financing a new gallery space in Chelsea. A place where emerging artists like myself can finally get the exposure they deserve. The table erupted in congratulations and enthusiastic chatter about my apparent generosity. No one seemed to notice or care that I hadn't spoken a word. I felt myself disappearing, becoming nothing more than an ATM with a pulse. The restaurant seemed to shrink around me, voices blending into a suffocating buzz. I couldn't breathe. "Excuse me," I managed to say, standing abruptly. "I need some air." I walked out without looking back, ignoring the calls of my name. Outside, I gulped the cool evening air, tears streaming down my face. For the second time in recent months, I found myself alone on the street, betrayed by those who claimed to love me. This time, however, I had resources. I had choices. I got into my car and started driving with no destination in mind, just away from the expectations, the manipulation, the suffocating weight of others' entitlement to my good fortune. Hours later, my gas tank nearing empty, I found myself in a small coastal town I'd never visited before. My car sputtered and died as I pulled into a parking spot near a row of quaint shops, the check engine light I'd been ignoring finally making good on its threat. It was past midnight. But one storefront still glowed with warm light, a small art gallery with a "closing soon" sign in the window. Through the glass, I could see a woman with silver-streaked hair arranging a display. Something pulled me toward that light. Maybe it was artistic curiosity, or simply the need for human contact that wasn't tainted by financial interest. I approached and knocked gently on the door. The woman looked up, startled, then came to the door with a questioning expression. "I'm sorry to bother you," I said, suddenly aware of how I must look, tear-stained and disheveled. Using my middle name. And T sounds wonderful. Savannah's gallery was a haven of authenticity in a world that had become increasingly artificial. She led me through the small, but thoughtfully curated space to a backroom that served as both office and kitchenette. As she prepared tea. "It's powerful. You've captured something, raw. Pain usually is," she replied simply. "Want to tell me why you're wandering around Harbor Point at midnight looking like you've lost everything?" The irony of her assumption wasn't lost on me. I had more money than most people would see in a lifetime, yet emotionally, I was bankrupt. "It's complicated," I began. Then found myself pouring out the whole story, the controlling parents, the secret art career, being disowned, the lottery win, and the subsequent betrayals. I omitted only my real name and the exact amount of my winnings. Savannah listened without interruption. Yet no one had asked it of me since the lottery. What did I want? Not what should I do with the money, or how should I help others, but what did I actually want? "Peace," I said finally. "Harbor Point isn't much, but we're short on expectations and long on space." My car broke down, I reminded her. "I'm not even sure how long I'll be stuck here." A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Sometimes the universe gives us exactly what we need, even when it looks like an inconvenience. That night, I called my financial advisor from a coffee shop where no one knew my name or my story. "Melissa, I need to make some changes," I said when she answered. "What kind of changes?" she asked. Concern evident in her voice. "The lawsuit from your uncle is frivolous, Amber. We'll fight it, but you shouldn't make any rash decisions." "This isn't about the lawsuit," I assured her. "I need to disappear for a while." There was a pause. Define disappear. I outlined my plan, setting up remote access to accounts, creating a management system for my assets that required minimal input, and establishing a small monthly transfer to a new, anonymous account. "You're talking about going off the grid," she said, sounding both professional and personally concerned. "May I ask why?" "I need to remember who I am without all the noise," I explained. "I need to find out what kind of person I want to be with this money, rather than what everyone else wants me to be." To her credit, Melissa didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, she helped me create a secure framework that would protect my assets while giving me the freedom I craved. We set up a system where I could check in quarterly via secure video conference, with emergency protocols in place if needed. My next call was to the small local mechanic who'd towed my car. The news wasn't good. The engine needed major repairs that would take at least a week to complete due to parts that had to be ordered. "A week in Harbor Point," I murmured after hanging up, looking around the picturesque Main Street. It felt like fate. Back at the gallery, I found Savannah struggling to hang a large canvas. "Let me help," I offered, taking one end of the heavy frame. "Thanks," she said as we maneuvered it into position. Not as spry as I used to be. I stepped back to admire the piece, a stunning seascape by a local artist. "It's beautiful." "Matthew has real talent," she agreed. "Just needs the right exposure." An idea began to form. "Savannah, would you be interested in some help around the gallery? Just while I'm in town. I have experience with art sales, and it seems like the least I could do in exchange for the apartment." She studied me with knowing eyes. "You don't need to earn your keep, Grace." "It's not about that," I insisted. "I'd genuinely like to help. And to be honest, I could use the distraction." After some consideration, she agreed. My parents, even my financial advisor again with some non-urgent question. I hadn't answered any of them. Instead, I took out a sketchbook I'd purchased from the local bookstore and began to draw for the first time in weeks. No pressure, no audience. No expectations, just the pure joy of creation that had drawn me to art in the first place. As darkness fell, I made a decision. I would stay in Harbor Point. Not just for a week while my car was repaired, but for as long as it took to rediscover myself. I would use my middle name, Grace, and keep my story simple, an artist taking a sabbatical after a personal setback. The lottery winner Amber Montgomery would take a temporary backseat to Grace, the artist who helped Savannah run her gallery. And in that space between identities, perhaps I would find answers about who I truly wanted to be. 6 months passed like a dream in Harbor Point. The small coastal town operated on its own rhythm, punctuated by fishing boats returning to harbor, weekend art walks along the promenade, and the changing colors of the sea with each passing season. Living as Grace, I found a simplicity that had eluded me both before and after the lottery. My temporary apartment above Savannah's gallery became a home. I added personal touches gradually, locally made pottery, driftwood sculptures from beach walks, and my own paintings, which were beginning to reflect a new depth and authenticity. Working in Savannah's gallery provided structure without pressure. I discovered I had a talent for connecting artists with the right collectors, for explaining the emotional resonance of a piece without sounding pretentious. Tourists and locals alike often commented on my insight, never suspecting they were speaking to someone who could buy every piece in the gallery without blinking. "You've got a gift for this," Savannah told me one evening as we closed up after a particularly successful showing. "Sales are up 30% since you arrived." I smiled, arranging brochures for the next day. I enjoy it. But displaying it would mean stepping back into the spotlight, even if only in this small town. "I'm not ready," I admitted. "It still feels too personal." Savannah nodded, understanding without pushing. That was her way, offering opportunities without expectation, giving advice without demand. In many ways, she had become the mentor I'd always needed. The frivolous lawsuit from my uncle had been dismissed, and the media interest in my disappearance had largely subsided. "Your parents have been trying to reach you through me," she mentioned during our spring check-in, "as have several others." "What have you told them?" I asked, watching seagulls wool past my window. "Exactly what you instructed, that you're taking personal time and all communications should go through proper legal channels." I nodded, grateful for her discretion. "And Tyler?" Melissa's expression tightened slightly. "Mr. Williams has been particularly persistent. He's mentioned a gallery venture that he claims you verbally committed to funding." "I made no such commitment," I said firmly. "I assumed as much," she replied. "On another note, I've prepared some documents for the foundation you mentioned establishing. Whenever you're ready to move forward with that." The foundation had been my idea, a way to support emerging artists without the complications of personal relationships. I had discussed it conceptually with Melissa months ago, but hadn't felt ready to implement it. "Send me the paperwork," I decided. "I think it's time." The Amber Grace Foundation was born quietly, without fanfare or public announcement. Its mission was simple: to provide grants, studio space, and mentorship to talented artists who lacked financial resources. It felt right, using my wealth to create opportunity without creating dependency. The foundation became my first step toward reconciling my two identities: Amber, the lottery winner with unlimited resources, and Grace, the artist who understood the struggle of creative passion. My personal growth extended beyond professional decisions. Through Savannah's gentle encouragement, I began seeing a therapist in a neighboring town, a woman named Dr. Lynette Marshall, who specialized in family trauma and sudden life changes. "You've created a beautiful sanctuary here," Dr. Marshall observed during one session. "But sanctuaries can become cages if we hide in them too long." "I'm not hiding," I protested. "I'm healing." "Those aren't mutually exclusive," she pointed out. "The question is, what comes after healing?" It was a question I'd been avoiding. Harbor Point had become safe, perhaps too safe. The locals knew me only as Grace, the talented artist who helped run Savannah's gallery. I had made genuine friends who had no idea of my wealth, evolving into beach walks and eventually quiet dinners at his modest cottage overlooking the water. "You're a mystery, Grace," he told me one evening as we watched the sunset from his porch. "I feel like you're always holding something back." The observation stung because it was true. Despite our growing closeness, Nathan knew nothing of my past or my fortune. "Everyone has secrets," I deflected. He turned to face me, his expression serious. Secrets are fine. Trust issues are something else. Whatever you're running from, and I know you're running from something, it doesn't define you. His words stayed with me, echoing Dr. Marshall's gentle challenges. Was I healing or merely hiding? Was I discovering my true self or simply creating another false identity? The answer came unexpectedly through Savannah. She burst into the gallery one morning, waving a prestigious art magazine. "Did you see this?" she demanded, thrusting it toward me. My heart stopped when I saw the headline, "Lottery Millionaire Amber Montgomery Establishes Major Art Foundation." The article detailed the foundation's first round of grants, speculating on my continued absence from public life. I couldn't lie to her, not after everything she'd done for me. "Yes," I admitted quietly. "I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you." To my surprise, she laughed. "Honey, I've known since your second week here. That car of yours wasn't exactly low profile, and I do read the news." "You knew?" I was stunned. "Why didn't you say anything?" She shrugged. "Wasn't my secret to tell. Figure everyone's entitled to reinvent themselves at least once in life." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by concern. "Does everyone in town know?" "Just me." "As far as I'm aware," she assured me. "But this article might change that." She was right. If I wanted to preserve the life I'd built here, I needed to make decisions about my dual identities. That evening, I called Melissa for an unscheduled conference. "It's time I took control of my narrative," I told her. "I can't keep living in hiding, but I won't be manipulated by others either." Together, we crafted a plan. I would return briefly to New York to handle necessary business, confront the lingering issues from my former life, and then decide my future with clear boundaries and purpose. As I packed a small suitcase, ironic, given how my journey had begun, I realized how much I had changed in 6 months. The frightened, reactive woman who had fled New York was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who understood that wealth was a tool, not an identity. Before leaving, I had one more difficult conversation. I invited Nathan to my apartment and told him everything: my real name, the lottery win, my family's rejection, and my escape to Harbor Point. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. So he finally said, "You're telling me I've been dating a millionaire who's been living above an art gallery and driving a loaner car from Joe's Auto Repair?" Put that way, it did sound absurd. I nodded, bracing for anger or accusations of deception. Instead, he laughed. "Grace, or Amber, whoever you are, that's the least materialistic thing I've ever heard. You're not angry that I lied?" "You didn't lie about the important things," he said, taking my hand. "Your passion for art, your kindness, your terrible singing voice, those are real." "Hey," I protested, but I was smiling too. "The money doesn't change how I feel about you," he continued, more serious now. "But I need to know who's coming back from New York, Amber or Grace?" It was the perfect question. Who was I now after everything? The answer came with surprising clarity. "Both," I said. I think it's time they became the same person. 1 year to the day after winning the lottery, I returned to New York City. But as someone who had found solid ground between extremes. My first public appearance was carefully orchestrated. The Manhattan Gallery of Modern Art was hosting an exhibition of emerging artists, including several who had received grants from my foundation. My name appeared discreetly on the program as both a patron and a contributing artist. The 3 pieces I had chosen to display represented my journey, a triptych titled Inheritance, Windfall, and Legacy. They were the most honest work I had ever created, born from both pain and healing. I wore a simple black dress, my hair now shorter than it had been during my Amber days, but styled more elegantly than during my Grace period. The composite identity I had crafted felt authentic, neither hiding my wealth nor being defined by it. As I circulated through the crowded gallery, I overheard snippets of conversation about my work. "The technique is extraordinary. Look at the layering here. There's such emotional intelligence in the composition." I heard she disappeared for a year after winning that lottery. The last comment made me smile slightly. I hadn't disappeared, I had been finding myself. "Amber." The voice behind me was instantly recognizable. I turned to face Tyler, who looked both familiar and strange, like a character from a novel I had read long ago rather than someone who had once been central to my life. Tyler, I acknowledged, keeping my voice neutral. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm showing in the East Wing, he said, gesturing vaguely. Small collection, but well received. I nodded, genuinely glad for his success. That's wonderful. An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Your work is different, he finally said, glancing at my triptych. Deeper. Thank you, Amber. About last year, he began, his expression shifting to one I recognized all too well, the calculated contrition that preceded an ask. It's in the past, I interrupted gently but firmly. I wish you well with your career, Tyler. I really do. His face registered surprise, then disappointment, and finally a reluctant respect. You've changed. Yes, I agreed simply. I have. As I moved away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There was no anger or resentment left, just the peaceful certainty that some relationships belong in the past. The gallery director found me later, enthusiastic about the response to my work. There's already interest in purchasing the triptych, she informed me. A collector from Chicago is offering well above the listed price. They're not for sale, I decided in that moment. They're being donated to the permanent collection. Some things were too personal to commodify, too important to my journey to part with for any price. The pieces would remain accessible to the public, a testament to the complex relationship between art, wealth, and identity. The following week brought the meeting I had been both dreading and preparing for lunch with my parents at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant halfway between their home and my new apartment. They arrived precisely on time, dressed impeccably as always. My mother's nervous smile and my father's stiff posture revealed their uncertainty about how this reunion would unfold. You look well, my mother offered as we settled at our table. The time away seems to have agreed with you. It did, I confirmed. I learned a lot about myself and what I want from life. And what is that? My father asked, his tone cautious, but genuinely curious. I took a deep breath. Authenticity. Purpose. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation or advantage. They exchanged glances, the silent communication of a long-married couple. We've done a lot of reflecting too, my mother said carefully. About our expectations, about how we treated you. We were wrong, my father added, the admission clearly difficult for him. Not about wanting the best for you, but about thinking we knew what that was. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. Part of me wanted more, an explicit acknowledgement of the harm they had caused, the years of pressure and control. The final cruel rejection. But I recognized that this was perhaps all they were capable of offering. I've established some boundaries, I told them, removing a folder from my bag. If we're going to have a relationship moving forward, these need to be respected. The document inside was simple but clear: no financial requests for extended family. No attempts to direct my philanthropy, regular but limited contact with clear parameters. A framework for rebuilding trust incrementally. My father's instinct was to negotiate, to counteroffer as he would in a business deal. Some of these terms are quite restrictive. They're non-negotiable, I interrupted firmly. This isn't a contract, Dad. It's a statement of what I need to feel safe in this relationship. He seemed about to argue, then stopped himself, a new understanding dawning in his eyes. You're not asking for permission anymore. No, I agreed. I'm not. After a moment of consideration, they both nodded. We can work with this, my mother said, a hint of pride in her voice that I hadn't heard before. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was an honest one. There would be missteps and old patterns to overcome, but the foundation was there for something healthier than what had come before. The Amber Grace Foundation grew steadily over the following months, establishing partnerships with art schools, community centers, and galleries across the country. Rather than simply writing checks, I became actively involved in the selection process, mentoring programs, and strategic planning. Using wealth to create opportunity rather than dependency became my guiding principle. When my cousin Brady approached me directly about his medical school debt, I connected him with a program the foundation had established for healthcare professionals willing to serve in underserved communities. His loan would be forgiven incrementally through service rather than a one-time bailout. My personal life found its own balance. After the exhibition, I returned to Harbor Point. Not to hide, but to embrace the community that had sheltered me during my transformation. I purchased a small house near the water, establishing a studio where I could create without pressure or expectation. Nathan and I continued to build our relationship on mutual respect and shared passion rather than convenience or advantage. When he finally learned the full extent of my wealth, his primary concern was characteristically practical. "Does this mean I'll have to start wearing suits to dinner?" he asked with mock horror. "Only if the restaurant requires it," I assured him, laughing. Life settled into a rhythm that honored both aspects of my identity. I divided my time between Harbor Point and New York, between creating art and supporting other artists, between the quiet life I loved and the responsibilities of my position. On the anniversary of buying that fateful lottery ticket, I made a pilgrimage back to the convenience store where everything had changed. The same clerk was behind the counter, though he didn't recognize me. "Winning ticket?" he asked as I purchased a bottle of water. "Not today," I replied with a smile. "But I was wondering if you could help me with something else." Through casual conversation, I learned about his daughter, Maya, a talented high school senior who dreamed of studying art but worried about the cost. The random chance that had changed my life would now change hers, creating opportunity without the complications I had faced. Standing outside the store, I reflected on the journey of the past 2 years. I had lost and found myself, been broken and made whole. Discovered that true wealth had little to do with money and everything to do with authenticity. I felt profound gratitude for both the challenges and blessings that had shaped my path. The frightened young woman with a single suitcase had become someone I was proud to be, someone who understood that life's true jackpot isn't found in a bank account, but in the courage to live authentically. Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed the direction of your life? Maybe it wasn't a lottery win, but I believe we all face crossroads that test who we really are. Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you navigated your own life-changing moments. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support means the world to me and helps stories like this reach others who might need to hear that sometimes. Our greatest challenges lead to our most authentic selves. Thank you for being part of this journey, and I'll see you in the next video.